Good morning, everybody. Pastor Brandon Smithfield here. How y'all doing today? Welcome back to Armor Up Daily. I hope y'all are doing well. Thank y'all for spending this little bit of time with me today, tuning in, guys. I very much appreciate it. Today, it's a new day, guys. I've been on the road and get a little bit of time to spend with you today. So, in my travels and the things that I've been witnessing, the things that we've been going through, and guys, I tell you, I don't know who needs us today, but the Lord spoke this in my spirit. He said, show you care. And the scripture today comes out of Mark 4:35 through 40. I look at what's going on in the world today. It's just like everybody's got their own struggles. Everybody's got their own stuff going on. It seems like, there are good times, and they've got their high times and they've got their low times, and, they're looking at the things going on around them. And it can get a little discouraging from time to time, and it's hard not to sometimes to be discouraged. But, we know that there's times we have to encourage ourselves, no matter, what season in our life that we're in. And as the Lord took me into the scriptures, and as I was reading this morning, He told me, He says, show you care. And I think about the people I reach out to, and, they might be going through something. You might not even realize what they're going through. They might be dealing with a loss of a loved one. We hear recently, while I was out of town, that we had a couple of younger teenagers on their way to school, and I'm telling you, they was in a car accident and there's a loss of life. And I pray for the family, and I pray for the school, and I pray for our community going through this, and not just the kids, but also the other people that were involved. I pray for them as well. Showing that you care is a simple act. It's simply, of just reaching out. And, when I was praying, about, the things that I've been through, and I think that this really applies. As we read in Mark 4:35, starting, it says, on the same day, evening had come, and He said to them, let us go over to the other side. Now when He had left the multitude, and He took along with Him a boat, and as He was, and the other little boats that was with Him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves that beat the boat, and it, the waves beat into the boat, so that it was already being filled, and He was asleep on a pillow. And they awoke Him and said to Him, Master, do you not care that we are perishing? And when He arose, He rebuked the wind, and He said to the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And He said to them, why are you so fearful? How is it you have no faith? You're thinking, poor child, how can this apply to us? Here's the thing. Have you ever been going through some things in life, and it might have been, something you've been going through for a long time? It might be something that's just started, and it feels like the pressures of life is coming in around you. And you're thinking, is God, where's God? You ever feel like God's asleep in your boat? And that is a question we could all ask ourselves. There are seasons that we go through that the Lord, He just tells us to go. He tells us to do, and He expects us to do. Jesus just got done feeding the multitude. He just got done ministering to over 5,000 men, and including their families. And He was tired. He said, let's go across. He didn't tell them that He was going to run into a hurricane. He didn't tell them that there was going to be, trouble along. He didn't tell them that there wasn't going to be trouble along the way. He just said, let's go. And the thing is, when they started getting, far out into the sea, that the wind started raising, the waves started belling into the boat, and Jesus was asleep. He was calm, like no issues. See, He had no doubt that He was going to make it to the other side. But all the people that was with Him, they knew that the Master, what He had just done, and all the miracles they had just seen, that God was in their boat. You know, he's not going to let it sink. He's not going to let him go. God does care, man, you know, because there's times I've asked him, I'm like, God, don't you care what I'm going through? Don't you care that, you know, you've called me to do this and step out and to do, you know, call me into this in the full time. And, you know, I've got more month than I got money, that, you know, I got more miles to go than less I got gas in my tank. You know, I've got, you know, more month than I've got groceries in my house to feed. Do you not understand that God cares? And he says that he will provide every need according to his riches and glory. You know, that he's going to take care of you. Doesn't matter how big the storm is. It could be, you might be battling depression. You might be battling, you know, some issues at work, you know, with co-workers or administration or whatever, you know, and it feels like the pressures of life is coming in and you feel like you're all alone. All it takes is that one phone call or that one visit from a friend or a loved one or somebody, even a stranger on the street, you know, to reach out their hand, and you can see when somebody's having a bad day and say, hey, you know, are you okay? Can I pray for you? You know, you can show someone that you care by reaching out. It's very simple, you know, is to make a phone call, shoot a text message, you know, let them know, you know, through prayer, you know, reaching out in prayer, it shows that you care. You might not be able to do nothing more than just listen to what they have to say. You know, it might be something that, you know, that God ordains, that he puts somebody, you know, in that gap that will give you an encouraging word from him. You know, there's times that you're going to go through some, you know, some things in life, man. You're going to go through some seasons that are really you're going to have to just embrace the suck, you know. And because he promised us, you know, life and life more abundantly. He never promised it'd be easy. He never said it'd be a smooth road. He promised us the very answer. He says, in this life you will have trouble, you know. And the thing is, he says, but don't be dismayed, you know, because greater is he is in me than who is in the world. You know, he's overcome the world. He's the one that he didn't just make the way for us, you know, show up and make a way. He's already made the way. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. You know, but see, when we turn to each other and we lean on each other and we talk to each other and reaching out and showing that we care, that we love, that we have compassion for one another, you know, this can take some of the burden off of you. You know, this helps, you know, give you some encouragement. You know, there was a time when David was off at war with all the men, and an army came in and stole everything that was in the women, children, everything, stole it all, took it all, you know. And when they came back and they were all in crying, they were tore apart, and they didn't know what to do, and they wanted to kill David. They wanted to kill the king, man. And he's like, he got to himself, but he says David encouraged himself in the Lord. There's times we have to encourage ourselves in the Lord to be able to make it through some things and to make it through some battles, man. If it's a health issue, if it's a financial crisis, if it's a marriage issue, it doesn't matter. If it's your kids gone crazy and you don't know what to do, if you're sitting there and there's a lot of kids right now that are going through, they're taking their final exams, you know, in college, you know, getting ready to graduate. You know, high school's getting ready to graduate. They're taking their final exams. The pressure is on, man. And it seems like you're running out of time, and you're trying to cram, and there's constant distractions, or you just don't think that, you know, that anybody cares because the pressure is on you. You know what I mean? So the thing is, when the simple hand, you know, soft touch on your shoulder, you know, of your friend, your mother, your father, you know, and says, hey, man, just talk to me, take a breath. You know, everything's going to be all right. You know, we know, what it does, it helps boost the confidence, you know, in that person. And it helps to boost the confidence in you, you know, in something you may be going through and in your situation. You know, in 1 John 3:18, it tells us, it says, my little children, do not let us love in word nor in tongue, but in deed and in truth. So it's easy just to, you know, not just give lip service, you know, not just to say, you know, just speak words or just talk out both sides of your mouth, man, you know. But when you actually show love and put it to work, you know, be that physical, you know, the physical action of showing that you care. Put it to work, man. Put the deed to work, and hold it up in the devil's face and says, you know what? It's like you have the deed to your house. You know, once you own your house, you got the deed, right? You own the property, you own the land, the deed to the property. That means nobody can take it away from you. You know, you can, and that's your deed, that's your peace. That the deed to peace, man, is in Jesus Christ. You know, that you can have that peace, no matter how much that storm, blows. Doesn't matter how hot that fire burns. Doesn't matter how much the turmoil is, how much the chaos is going on around you, because he will be your calm in the storm. Because I'll tell you right now, because Jesus said, or the Lord tells us, he says, I know my thoughts I think towards you, to prosper you, to give you hope in a future. All these are good things. Sometimes you got to put some work into it, guys. Sometimes you got to really be able to push through. If he told Abram, when God told Abraham, when he was Abram, he says, leave your people and go this direction. He just gave him a direction. He didn't tell him where he was going. He didn't tell how far he was going. He just said go. He didn't tell him that the journey was going to be easy and flat, and smooth roads ahead. He didn't say, that there wouldn't be, massive storms or floods or, earthquakes or anything. He just knew that he had to go. He trusted in God enough that he says, if when I make it to where I'm going to make it, God will let me know. And the thing is, when we are truly making that walk, there's where we build our faith in Christ, man. It's where we build our strength in him. And the thing is, if Abram would have just stayed where he was at, well, the blessing he would have got was never come to pass. You understand? You can't fall into fear. You can't fall into the worry and anxiety of things in life, and just start throwing yourself a pity party. When you're sitting there throwing yourself a pity party like a little 2-year-old that doesn't get a popsicle, that's sitting there running, screaming, and yelling, I want. Trust God, man. Because he does care. He cares about your health. He cares about your relationship with him, most importantly. He cares about spending that time with you. Do you care enough to spend that time with him? Do you care enough to be able to include him through your day? And there's times that we see brothers and sisters out there that are stepping out of line, because they're getting caught up in the world, instead of being led by the Spirit. And then you're like, you know what? Is as faithful the wounds of a friend? These are the ones that'll say, I'm going to tell you the truth, even if it hurts. You're stepping out of line. You need to step up. You need to get back in line with Jesus, guys. Let's, reaching out to him. If you see them going and they're straying off, yank that chain and say, listen, man, I love you enough to tell you, you're going to get hurt. You're going to die if you keep going back down that road. If you keep going back to those people, places, and things you used to do, you're going to end up back on the needle. You're going to end up back on the bottle, and then you might end up wrapped around the tree. You might end up, in your marriage falling apart in a divorce. You might end up, with your kids, being, putting you in a nursing home when you're, 50, when you're 30 years old, because it doesn't have everything they could have with you. You know what I'm saying? I know it's a little funny, but seriously, there's where we bear one another's burdens. That's what it tells us in Galatians 6:2. It says, bear one another's burdens, and we fulfill the law of Christ. If we bear one another's burdens, it makes the load a little lighter. And 1 Peter says, cast your cares upon Jesus. It says, cast your cares upon me, right? If we cast our cares, all our worries, our anxieties, all these things that we're going through, the Lord's just going to show you, that he cares for you. He said, Jesus said, my burden is light. He says, take my yoke upon you, because my burden is light. He says, come to me who's heavy laden, I will give you rest. If we really turn to him and we put it at his feet, and we encourage ourselves in the Lord, we can show that he can show us the care that he has, but you got to let him in, and if we bear one another's burdens, and we don't just, say, well, I'm just, just don't give some word, but actually putting it to work and putting it to, put the deed, to put the work in and helping one another. Guys, I'm gonna tell you something. That shows you care more than anything. I've sit with family members that have lost loved ones, and they feel like nobody else in the world cares or what they're going through and what they're and what they're dealing with, and the loss of a family member, husband, wife, child, whatever. And no words were spoken. Just a simple sitting on the front porch drinking a cup of coffee with them. A presence alone with a listening ear and a shut mouth can speak a lot of words. I'm telling you. It can speak volumes. Don't interject. Just be there to listen and let them dump, man. If they have a word for the Lord, or they have a word of good word of advice, it'll resonate. It'll touch your heart. I mean, the Lord He's got a way, man, just to send people that are going through what you're going through, and to be able to touch others, and they will find peace amongst each other in talking in prayer. So today, as we go about our day, no matter where the storms is going on, no matter what, hell you're going through. And I'll tell you guys, there's a lot of hell going on in this world. It's like it's been turned loose and rampant, but greater is He, guys. Greater is the blood of Christ that's on you than anything that can be, that can try to come up against you, because no weapons formed against you shall prosper. Any tongue that rises against you, you shall condemn, because that's the heritage of your Lord. And when we stand together in unity, and we stand together with the Lord, greater who's in me is greater than what's going on in this world. And I'll stand right now with Jesus, guys, all day long. Show somebody you care today. Reach out. Tell them you're praying for them. Tell them you love them. They might need to hear it, guys, because that might be the last one that somebody ever hears. Because I've had those conversations where I'm just a simple, hey, how you doing? And had a simple conversation with somebody. And it changed their whole aspect of their life. It changed everything, man. I mean, it changed everything. When I say it changed everything, because they were getting ready to go home and put a pistol in their mouth and eat a bullet. And I did not know that. God has got a way to put somebody in your path that will help you if you just listen. And if you're obedient to the Lord to say, He says, go pray for this person. Go pray for them. Go talk to them. Start the conversation. God will open the door. Just step through it. That's all you got to do. Guys, I love y'all with all my heart. And I'm here. And I'm reaching out today. If you need anything, call me. Shoot me a message on Messenger here. Shoot me a text message, whatever. Let's sit. Let's talk. We will make it through this. Guys, be that person that makes a difference in somebody else's life today and show that you care. Jesus is not asleep in your boat. God knows exactly what's going on. He knows what His plans He has for you, and He knows what He's doing. You just got to trust His timing and trust Him, that He truly knows what He's doing. There's might be some time you might be kind of like in a holding pattern. It feels like there's nothing going right. There's nothing, it seems like everything's just dead to you. And you're thinking, man, I just feel like I'm getting stagnant. But really, He's giving you a refreshing. He says, you need some time to take a breath. And I'm giving you this time, that I'm preparing something over here that has to be done first before you make it there. Right now, this is a growing season. So when it's time for the harvest, it's time for you to roll. He said, when it happens, guys, you've got to be pay very close attention, because when He says go, you've got to be ready, because it's going to come very fast. Those blessings that you've been believing God for, they're going to come fast. The salvations of the loved ones that you've been believing for God to be to touch their lives and to be saved, it will come fast. You don't stop believing, you don't stop praying, and you don't stop doing what you're supposed to be doing. Guys, I love y'all. I hope you have a blessed, wonderful day. A couple of announcements real quick. We're coming up. There will not be in-person service over at the Rec Center this coming Sunday due to Memorial Day weekend. They are closed. We will be meeting on the 31st back at the Rec Center. May 31st, I will be at Princeton Rescue Squad Chapel service for the 10 o'clock service, and then I'll leave straight from there and be going to our 814 outreach for our church service at 1:30. So y'all want to come out and join, please do. May the 7th, we will be at Mapleview Church of Christ. I'll be doing messes there that morning at 11 o'clock. And then we'll be doing a bike blessing afterwards for the kids and everybody that rides. So please, if you'd like to join us, that's at 11 o'clock. Please come out and join us. I encourage you guys. It's going to be a great and blessed day. 8th, 9th, and 10th of June. That would be the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of June. 8th, 9th, and 10th. We're going to be in revival over at the Princeton Rail Yard. The Princeton Railroad Museum, excuse me. The Princeton Railroad Museum starting at 6 o'clock every night. Come out, bring a friend, guys. We're going to be in revival all week that week. So I'll be preaching that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's the 8th, 9th, and 10th. Guys, I hope this finds you well, and I think that may the Lord bless you today. I don't know who needs us today. I know I did. Encourage somebody today. Encourage yourself in the Lord. I love you, and I hope you have a blessed and wonderful day. And if you'd like to give to our ministry, guys, I'd like to ask you to give. We have a lot of traveling coming up in June, all month. There'll be a lot of appointments. So if you'd like to give, please give. Have us give to one that goes towards the ministry and evangelism, but also it goes to our church. So if you'd like to give, please give. It's in the description. Ways of giving online, and also the way to mail things in. Please, as the Lord leads you, please give. I love y'all. I hope you have a blessed and wonderful day. I love you. Jesus loves you so much more. I'll talk to you in a bit.